So in the last video, this is as far as we got with the build. We're going to continue with the build, a few more pieces on the chassis, and we should be done with the base chassis. Before we do that, as I said in the last video, let's clean up again some of these last few components that we bought in here, and go ahead and break the links on these components. That's done. All the components are now disconnected from the Tetrix kit. Alright, so next what we're going to do here is, looks like we're going to add 3 more channels on here. So it says it's a 160mm channel, 32mm channel, and a 96mm channel. So I'm going to bring those in, 160, 32, and 96. I'm going to search through my Tetrix kit here. There's a 96 right here. That has come in. I'm going to roughly position it like it shows in this print over here. Looks like I gotta turn it around this way by 90, and then this way by 90 again. Maybe move it up and bring it over like this. So if I look at it in this view, so maybe from the front, yep, it looks kind of in position about there. Not too bad. I'm just gonna leave it there. So let's say okay. That was one of them. Need to get the remaining in. There's a 32mm channel right there. And again, it came in over here. I'm gonna move that up. Rotate it around by 90, and then I'm gonna do that once more. There we go, another 90 degrees, and position it something like this. Okay, say okay, and there's one more channel, which was the 160mm, the long one. I'm gonna find that, bring it in also. Let's turn this one also around by 90, and then 90 this way. Okay, let's move it up. And look at it from the front. Yep, that's good enough, I think. Just positioning so it becomes easier later on to make the joints. I'm going to say okay over there. Everything is relatively okay in position. I'm going to go ahead and make the joints so that it basically looks like this after you join it. Let's zoom in a little bit and see how it looks. Yep, here it is. This is the one. So it looks like this one is joined directly to the end of this channel here, and then this one is joined, looks like using these red screws to the third hole over here. This gives a good idea. You have to line up these two, and then you have to line up this. So basically this whole set of 3 new channels is being attached here to this angle bar. It looks like this piece is flush with the channel here, and then you can attach this. So let's do that. Let's start with this piece. It's easier to locate this piece here. That's this one right here. It has to come and sit on this angle bar, but it has to be flush. So basically the bottom of it here has to come and sit on the angle bar some way. So I'm gonna pick this hole over here basically and make it sit there. So I'll pick this last hole over here for a joint. So say J for joint. Select this last hole, the center. Zoom out. Let's do the second selection on the angle. This hole. See how it looks once I join it. And it was on a revolute joint, that's why it showed me a revolution. I'm going to change that to rigid. Now it's rigid. See the position. It looks like it's flush, so that's the correct position. Okay, so basically we fixed this channel to the angle bar. That's good. I'm going to do one joint over here for the smaller angle. Looks like it is somewhere on the 3rd or 4th hole here. So let's go ahead and take a look at that on this model. Start another joint, J. I'm gonna bring this one. And this time I'm gonna pick this hole on this side over here. Center. And I'm gonna pick the 3rd hole. So I'm gonna line it up with the 3rd hole. Okay, that looks good. Let's say okay, it looks like it does over here. That's pretty good. And then finally one more channel to be added. That's this last one here. It basically, I'm going to join it here and here. So again, J for joint. This time I'm going to pick the outer hole here. Go back to the channel that we just fixed. Attach it to this outer hole here. There you go. I'm going to say OK. Check it out. It should look very similar to this. You see how the hole, this last hole on the channel here is lined up with the 3rd hole here. The last hole here is lined up with the 3rd hole here. We didn't put the joint yet over here. We did join it rigidly on this one, so technically you really don't need to join it here. To make things easier, we're not going to join it now. Okay, so that is done. Let's see if there's anything else on the... That was it. So that completes the chassis build basically. And the next is we have to start assembling the wheels. So before we do that, let's clean up again. break the links on the last few channels that you bought in, and I'll show you one more thing to do to make it easier going forward. So now we have this chassis built up to this point. I'm gonna save it so that this version is saved. And one thing that we should do now, let's start organizing our build. What I mean is, since you have completed the chassis build, we're gonna call this as the chassis, base chassis. To do that, go to the Pushbot, the top level over here, Pushbot, and right click and say new component. You will see that there's a new component appears over here at the bottom, and the dot is now in this circle saying that this is now the active component. So I'm going to rename this component. I'm going to just click on it once or twice and you'll see it change like this. Now I can rename it. I'm going to say base chassis, hit enter. So I now have a new component with nothing in it. There's nothing in there, but it's called base chassis. And what I'm going to do is take all these channels. So I'm going to select all of them. I just hold down shift and selected all of them. And I'm going to take them. So with the left mouse button, I'm going to take it and drag it into the base chassis. And you notice now all these sub-components or all these individual channels are now inside base chassis, so that I have only one line item here. It's easier to now see everything, and everything is grouped under that base chassis. All my channels that make up the chassis is under that, including the joints that we had made to attach those parts. So automatically Fusion has transferred the joints which are on this chassis into our new component, which we call the base chassis. Why is this useful? Because now at one go you can even hide the whole base chassis, just this bulb over here, or you can select individual chassis and individual channels and hide them. This is very useful later on as the build gets more and more complicated. So I'm going to go ahead, save it once more, and with that the chassis build is basically completed.